Understanding the two main error handlers. When you start building robust formulas in Excel, you inevitably run into errors, and it is crucial to know how to manage them so your spreadsheets don't look broken. There are essentially two primary functions available to you for this specific job: IFERROR and IFNA. I'll type them right here so you can see them clearly. The difference between them is actually quite important. IFNA is a specialist. It is designed strictly to deal with the specific NA error. IFERROR, on the other hand, is a bit more flexible and acts as a catch-all that will handle virtually any error type it encounters. Setting up the VLOOKUP scenario. To see how these work in a real scenario, let's try to pull some data together using a standard VLOOKUP. On my current sheet, Report, I have a list of inventory records, but I am missing the product name and the cost price total for each item. Over on my inventory data worksheet, I have the main list containing the inventory records data, the name, and the price. My goal here is to use VLOOKUP to search for the product ID in the inventory data and retrieve the missing information. Just to save us a little bit of time, I have already gone ahead and named that data range products, which makes referencing it much easier. Let's start by constructing the basic VLOOKUP for the product name. I'll type equals VLOOKUP, and my lookup value is naturally the product ID in the first column. For the table array, since I created that named range, I can just press F3 on my keyboard and select products from the list. I'll add a comma. Since we want the product name, that is located in the second column of our inventory data, so I'll type a 2. Finally, we need an exact match for the product ID, so I'm going to add a 0, or you could type false at the end. When I close the bracket and hit enter, I get my result. I can double-click the fill handle to copy this down to the rest of the rows. I'm also just going to quickly widen these rows and columns because the text is getting cut off a bit, and we want to see everything clearly. You will notice immediately that we have a couple of NA errors sitting in our table. I'm going to make a logical guess here that this is happening simply because that specific product ID does not exist in our source data. If we look at the first error, product ID ID6, and we hop over to the inventory data sheet, we can verify this. Excel tells me it can't find it. That confirms why we are seeing that NA error. Implementing the IFNA function. You could technically leave those errors as they are, but it is best practice to wrap your logic in an error handling function. This makes your data look professional and prevents users from thinking there's a calculation problem with your workbook. Instead of a scary error code, we can make it say something useful like product not found. To do this, we go back to our first formula in cell B2. I'm going to click my mouse right after the equal sign because we are effectively going to wrap our existing VLOOKUP inside a new container. Since we are dealing specifically with NA errors here, I'm going to use the IFNA function. As soon as I type the open parentheses for IFNA, you'll see the arguments appear. It asks for two things, the value and the value IFNA. The value is simply the result of our VLOOKUP formula. We already have that written, so we don't need to touch it. I'll just click at the very end of the formula and type a comma to move to the second argument. Now we need to tell Excel what to display if it hits a snag. I want it to say product not found. Because this is text, you must remember to enclose it in double quotation marks. So I open quotes, type product not found, close the quotes, and then close the bracket for the IFNA function. When I hit enter and double-click to copy that new formula down, the table transforms. Instead of errors, we now see clear, helpful text explaining the situation. Using IFERROR for the second column. Let's do this one more time for the cost price total, but we will use the other function. First, I'll widen the column, then I'll write the VLOOKUP, look up the product ID, press F3 to grab the products table, ask for column 9 this time for the price, and use false for an exact match. I hit enter and copy it down. Again, we see those NA errors. This time, I want the cell to display price total not found. I'll go back to the top formula and click after the equal sign. This time, I'm going to use IFERROR. While you can use either function for this specific problem, remember that IFERROR is a catch-all. IFNA is strictly for not available errors, while IFERROR handles everything. The syntax, however, is exactly the same. The VLOOKUP acts as our first argument. I'll click the end of the line, add a comma, and then define my custom message. In quotes, I'll type price total not found, close the quotes, and close the bracket for the IFNA function. When I hit enter and double-click to copy that new formula down, the table transforms. Instead of errors, we now see clear, helpful text explaining the situation. Finally, I noticed the alignment is a bit all over the place here, so while we're at it, I'll just select the data and align everything to the left. That looks much cleaner. This method of wrapping your core formulas is really straightforward and works on almost any formula you write.